Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Today, I am super excited to have another Ben with me, Ben Gioia. Welcome, Ben.
Hey, Ben, thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here and really an honor to share this conversation with you.
The honor is all mine. So, Ben, you are a speaker, consultant, best-selling author, and president of Influence with a Heart.
Yep.
You show people how to make a bigger impact by inspiring their clients. So, want to dive into that, but first, before we talk about Influence with a Heart, how did you get on this heartfelt journey? What's the superhero origin story that bring you to this heart power?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. Always a good one. It was actually two different things. The first one was I was on a hike in India for about 72 hours, and within the space of that hike, I almost died about 4 times.
Okay.
So, almost going off a cliff, and then running from a forest fire, and then encountering a poisonous snake, and then stumbling upon a mountain lion. So got through this, wacky, wild, adrenaline fueled weekend, and got to the end of that and started going, wow, I could have almost bit it quite a few times. What an amazing reminder of the fleetingness of life and how quickly things can change. It would be really good for me to do, something good in the world, something impactful. I know I want to help people, but let me actually figure out what that means, in a more articulate and kind of action-oriented sense, and let me go do something with that. Now, great aspiration, great beginning, great kickoff.
And roughly how old were you when that happened, and where in India?
I was 32, I think, 32 or 33. Yeah, and fabulously stubborn, because it's still, after that all happened, it took a good 2 more years to even get started.
Right.
And the getting started is the second half of what I wanted to mention. Was my first experience of a day meditation retreat, silent meditation retreat, that really knocked my socks off, kicked my ass, and opened my eyes in such a really, really kind of profound and positive way. So, both of those two events coming together, really helped me, realize that I got to get out there, because, who knows how long life will be.
Right.
And number two is, I really want to be in massive service to people and impact as many people as possible. And then from there, there began the journey.
Okay. So let's take us to you sitting down in silence. I imagine many different thoughts went through your head. How did that crystallize into this service message for you?
Probably within the space of those 10 days, I don't think the message was quite there yet. The space of those 10 days was just literally, like dealing with what they call, you've probably heard the term, the monkey mind, and, a whole bunch of physical discomfort in your body as you're sitting for many, sessions of meditation. Like, we did a total of about 10 hours a day.
Okay.
Hour and a half, 2-hour chunks. Man, your body, screams at you. And there's all of, emotions coming up, and regrets and dreams and sexual fantasies. I mean, it's just like, it's a circus in there, when you stop and get quiet and start listening. But, there were intimations of things coming through around, memories of like helping out, being of service throughout my life in other ways, and going, that's really powerful stuff. And, the world needs that in a big way. And, is there a way that I can do that? Because I get so much nourishment from it, and do it in a way that like supports my lifestyle and all the things that I want to do with myself.
All right. And what were you doing at the time professionally?
I was working for an organization, a nonprofit called the ALS Association. ALS is Lou Gehrig's disease.
Right.
So working on both their communications and patient services stuff. And actually at that time, I created a mindfulness training for ALS patients, and actually won an award from the organization for innovative programming.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
So for those of us that maybe can't get to a 10-day retreat, but want to start on that mindfulness path, what are the keys to starting on that mindfulness journey?
Yeah, I would say, go online, read some stuff about, like what is mindfulness and how, how can I be more mindful? There's tons of information all over the place. The real nutshell is, can you pay attention for as long as possible to what you're doing in the present moment, or what you're feeling, or what you're experiencing, or what you're saying? Like, the more time you spend in the present moment, the better for you, the better for your brain, the better for your ability to listen, the better for your ability to be more empathetic. Your stress goes down, all of that kind of stuff. So what I like to tell people is, like, if you realize that you're, in the present moment, like you're washing the dishes and you're like, wow, I'm here right now, breathe in and out about 3 times and just be with that experience. And then if you, later in the day, notice you're really angry and you're like, wow, I'm really present. I notice I'm really angry. Be with that for 3 breaths. Just spend a little time present with whatever you're, thinking, feeling, saying, doing, experiencing. The more you can do that, you're just building that muscle, training your mind into coming back to that space, that little place of refuge, and that place out of which, creativity, innovation, leadership, joy, all the good stuff will spring over time.
Right. Yeah, I think that's some great wisdom. And I think just to juxtapose that, you're not in mindfulness when you're, thinking about the past, or you're worried about your to-do list, or you've got just random other things going on in your head that don't have to do with what you're currently doing. Because there's lots of different ways that mindlessness can show up.
That's totally true. Yeah. And something that I think is really, really important to underscore in the middle of all of this is, they call it a mindfulness practice, not a mindfulness perfect, because it's hard to stay present.
Right.
Like, it's so easy to be distracted. We have things that we care about that are important. We have to plan, we have to think about, there are, legitimate reasons to think in the past, think in the future. So, for everybody who's listening, who might not be so familiar with mindfulness, it's not about self-judgment, self-recrimination. It's just, practice, start again, no judgment, like just do it and do it again and don't give up,
Right. Yep. And I think, also understanding, for example, when I meditate, for example, if I've got a big to-do list, I will write that out prior, so I know it's not cycling.
Exactly.
And that way that allows me to free my mind and give myself that space, where otherwise it would keep crawling back in.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because that's a tremendous mindfulness tip. I think a lot of people, they hear mindfulness or meditation and they're like, ooh, that mysterious thing. And you just, articulated a really, really great way to be mindful about your stuff by organizing it and, kind of taking it off your mental plate. Like, that's huge, because you're opening up the space to actually be present with what you're doing when you're doing that next thing.
Yes.
So, nicely done, and thank
you. Doesn't stop that monkey mind, but it gives it a couple less iterations to cycle through.
Exactly. Yeah. And it can run in the background a little more.
Exactly. So let's talk about your company and what you do with Influence with the Heart, and your book. I know all of us as men want to become more powerful leaders. And I guess your supposition that the heart is the access to that authentic power. So can you talk a little bit about your platform and what you do?
Absolutely. Yeah. So in a nutshell, I help people be better leaders and communicators so they can make a bigger impact. And like you said, coming from the heart as the foundation for that, I offer and teach a framework that involves empathy, story, thought leadership, and mindfulness. Right. There's, all of those things, working as a system together, of course, to, lead to, more connected communication, greater levels of leadership. And then the fact that they're all based in mindfulness, and, mindfulness of the heart, of, the intentionality behind what we're doing, the transparency in what we're doing, looking at how we're impacting the world,
Right.
Who we're benefiting, who we might not be benefiting, right? Like taking a real look at the reality, and then taking responsibility for, our role, on this earth, so to speak, in our lives and in the work that we do every day, right? So, the intentionality of doing good with it, the reality of taking a clear look at what are we actually doing, how are we doing it, what are the choices we're making, how are those impacting people inside our business, outside our business, environmentally, like all that stuff's a mix.
Right.
Yeah, and I think just the last part of it is being in that space that creates human to human connection, because regardless of all of the technology and sales funnels and the web and all the things, this is still people connecting with and serving people, and it all really comes down to that knowing, liking, trust, building relevant relationships with people and giving them a whole lot of value as you're serving them.
All right. It's a great summation. So some follow-up questions. I want to look at two examples. I think let's look at an example from someone who might be within a corporate structure that may be wanting to lead better, but maybe they're not 100% aligned with the mission of the company, right? So I think there's probably a present leveling up that they can do, but maybe there's also that future component too, where they're more aligned with what they're doing.
Yep. Yeah, so that's a tricky one, because I've felt that myself and had some of that experience. I think, gosh, first and foremost, if you're not feeling in alignment with your organization, your company, whatever, you should really, take a look and say, okay, is there a way that I can create some alignment? Like, can I find a commonality of purpose, a commonality of values, a commonality, pardon me, of intention,
right?
That works with me without me compromising who I am and what I'm about? Or, do I need to set my vision on heading out the door in 3, 6, or 9 months?
Right.
I personally come from the place of, we have this life, because I don't know what's next. We have this lifetime, like, if you're not doing something you love, or at least like enough because it supports the bigger picture of your life, your family, like whatever, the things you need to make it happen, move forward. We all make sacrifices and compromises, and ideally we make the least amount possible,
Right.
because the least amount of sacrifices that we can make, I think, gives us the space and the power and the energy and excitement to go kick some serious ass for good,
Yep. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think if you're thinking about being in a structure like that where you're, let's say, partially in alignment, I think thinking about serving, your teammates, or, for example, mentoring others to the best of your ability so you can sharpen your leadership skills for what's next, for example, is a good way to kind of bridge that gap. But I resonate with what you're saying, that you don't necessarily want to compromise too much, because then you'll kind of lose your energy and your spark, and you want to get more in touch with that to reach that, to be more in heart alignment with it. And that's part of your point.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what we're both saying is true. One of the most powerful ways to, transform people, organizations, teams, et cetera, is to start leading by example and start doing the thing and empowering others to do the things, whether it's overtly giving them some guidance, or just, gently bringing in some new ideas of, hey, what do you think if we did this, or focused on this, or, recognize this group of people for, this amazing contribution they make that, this organization doesn't hear about otherwise.
Right.
Yeah, so there's, a beautiful opportunity, which I think is what you're saying, to, to take that incentive and to, be a leader regardless of whether you are titled a leader,
Right.
be a leader because it's, part of your character, and an opportunity to practice, actually doing. So
That makes a lot of sense. The storytelling part of what you do, I'm interested in. We talked a little bit before the recording about vulnerability. One thing I feel like I need to improve at is storytelling, and I know it's such a powerful tool to be able to connect with people. How do you help people tap into their storytelling ability and develop that?
Yeah. So I would say first and foremost, just start with the truth of your experience and the things you know about, so your, history, experience, skills, expertise, case studies, outcomes, failures, like
Right.
less to success experiences, slap on the head experiences, like, oh, I, wish I had seen that coming. Or even the experience you had on the bus the other day that kind of made you go, huh, that's a new way to think about, something in the world. Start with the things that are close to you, because, they're true, they're authentic.
Right.
And they're relevant either because they're directly relevant to your audience, because of your skills, expertise, what you can deliver, etc., or they're relevant because your stories, articulate the uniqueness of you. And, maybe there are 50 other consultants who do the same sort of kind of consulting that you do, but you're the one who can deliver this solution like nobody else can, because you are you. And you're
Okay.
bringing all of that individual, unique magic into the mix.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's like a good, you talked about case studies. What's a good example or case study that you've worked with a client and you've kind of taken them from point A to point B to really kind of amp up their game?
Yeah. So I just finished about a 10-month consulting client, let me try that again, consulting contract with a client, a Fortune 100 company, who wanted to transform the customer experience, both for 16,000 customer service employees and for the customers at the other end. So, how can we deliver something that can create this pretty massive transformation in both of these audiences' experiences? So we created, based on a curriculum that I developed, a video game, literally a video game for these 16,000 people that teaches mindfulness, empathy, and communication, a style of communication that I would call compassionate communication.
Okay.
So, we developed the whole game, and by time they did the trial launch, which was, November, December, and now January, like the feedback, the daily feedback reports are coming in at 60 and 70%, satisfied or very satisfied with the experience of the game.
Uh-huh.
And all of the comments from people down below are like, great understanding of this. I'm already starting to do this with my team. I'm already doing this. So they haven't even sat down and done any of the follow-up surveys yet. And in just the pre-stuff, it's like gangbusters already. It's really amazing. So I look forward to seeing, what happens, when it's rolled out to all 16,000 people, because that'll take about a year and a half to do.
Right.
But, within a year and a half, things can certainly shift in a big way, like culture. Right. And like attitude within a place. We can't guarantee that because, organizations, people, companies have, they have mindsets as we individuals have mindsets. And sometimes it can take longer to shift that stuff. But, we know we've made good inroads, and, the fact that people are excited to go play a video game, is pretty cool. Like I'm delighted myself, and it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. So let's talk about just a video game scenario real quick that would help me understand what that looks and feels like. So I've got to choose your own adventure about whether to be a jerk or think about the other person on the other end of the phone. How's that work?
Yeah. So great question. So it had nothing to do with the kind of business scenario that any one of those employees would experience each day, because
Right.
nobody wanted to play a game about work. So what it was a, now I have to say this broadly enough because I'm still under contract with them, so I can't reveal anything.
Yes.
But I can say safely and legitimately that it was basically a detective story.
Okay.
And to solve the mystery, you had to navigate conversations with people, which involved empathy, which involved mindfulness, some of the scenarios, you were running around like a lunatic trying to get a bunch of stuff done. So, you had to really bring self-care into the mix, make sure you're getting enough rest and food and taking a mindful pause, those kinds of things. So creating learning mechanics in and around mindfulness, empathy, compassion, communication, giving people opportunity through dialogue choice and exploring around literally on screen and clicking on stuff, investigating clues, that over time, they were building a skill set and solving a mystery. And, based on people's choices, like if you made a less ideal choice, the game would offer a level of like remedial help to guide you to make a better choice the next time. So it wasn't just kind of like pass fail stuff. It was, adaptive learning on a basic level, which is pretty cool.
Okay. I think it's a nice segue into, if we're looking at this evolved man question, where do you see like the easiest opportunities or the low hanging fruit for men in general to level up some of their communication or how they're vulnerable? What are the opportunities, or where can they look to make those kind of tactical changes that'll make a big difference?
Yeah. So I think if a good place to start is, practice mindfulness, meditation if possible, and I strongly recommend that. But if not, more mindfulness of more stuff that you're doing throughout the day, because more mindful means more present, means more perceptive, more listening, better listening,
right?
All of that kind of stuff. Neurologically, there's a part of the brain called the insula that the more you practice mindfulness, especially related to your body, like pay attention to your breathing or the physical sensations, your insula gets stronger. Okay. And that automatically makes you more empathetic. Like it's the same part of the brain, which is really, really cool. And then, literally be more empathetic, like spend more time, getting into the head or the shoes or looking at, the world through somebody else's eyes. Especially when you feel yourself being judgmental or impatient or dismissive, like try to pause and go, okay, like what's going on for that person? Even if they're driving you banana, like what is happening for them? And then the kind of the balancing side of that is be careful as you're going into a space of empathy, because a challenge with empathy, it's a beautiful space to be in, but you can kind of get stuck, in this emotional space with someone. Right. So you want to make sure that you are, entering into empathy and then kind of shifting into a place of compassion, right? Because compassion is where the action happens. Okay. You can spend time being stuck in empathy, and that leads to empathy fatigue, burnout, literally that kind of stuff. You'll be sick of your customers, for example. If you're getting all these calls, be like, shut the hell up and stop calling me, because you're spending too much time with them and not caring enough for yourself. Right. So in all of this communication and empathy and, cultivating trust and being authentic, you have so much care for yourself, because if you don't care for yourself, you can't care for anyone else.
Right. That makes sense. In other words, you have to protect your energy so you can go in and be empathetic without, letting it be a suck.
Yeah, exactly. And then from there, as you're communicating with people, storytelling, sharing your stories, tremendously powerful. We talked a little bit about that already. And asking people to share their stories with you. Most people love to talk about themselves. Most people love to answer questions about themselves. Literally, when people talk about themselves, they like you, like they trust you. They recognize that you care enough about them to ask them and understand and to truly listen. Right. And as people are telling their stories, you listen to what they say and you go, wow, this person talks about this challenge, this goal, this dream. They're actually giving me language that I can say, hey, are you having this challenge or goal or dream? I can help you with that. Or I know someone who can help you with that. Right. So, listening closely to, it's in some ways, this is, marketing 101. Listen, ask people questions, listen to what they say. Right. Let them tell you how you can help them. Don't make the assumption. Don't assume the need for them. Find out first, and then maybe you discover something that they don't see, but you don't lead with that. That does not create a relationship.
Right.
That creates some objection. Tell
Yeah.
me
No.
what I need. People don't like that.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I remember some of that stuff from How to Win Friends and Influence People. One of the classics. I think it's Dale Carnegie.
Totally. Yeah.
And I like what you're saying about keying into the language that they use to be an important thing to be able to speak back to them, because you're actually using the words that they say so they can feel and know that you listen to them and strike those neurons in their brain the right way. So that,
Totally.
I think it's a good hint there. I'm figuring out different ways and different people in my life I can use this mental judo with, but I don't mean to say it in a manipulative way, but in a
No,
way
not at
that
all.
can generate better results overall.
Yeah, it's not manipulative. It's an invitation, and it's a way to educate people, to see what's possible and show them, what's possible with you. There's nothing wrong with that, because ideally the whole time you're operating from clear intention, intention for the benefit of the best outcome, for everyone.
Right.
And you're giving value the whole time on some level or another. Then you can't go wrong.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. What else have we not covered about influence with the heart?
Yeah, I think something that I don't talk a lot about this, because this has been a kind of internal struggle for me. But just recognizing, I think there's a lot more people than me who struggle with this.
Okay.
Whenever I see the word, doctor, or something like that, instantly in my head the image is male.
Okay.
Is of men. And I know that's not the case. And, I come from a big family of very successful professional women, you know what I mean? So it's not that
Right.
I've been, I think I'm quite a, quite chill on the level of like not being a knucklehead guy. And, the culture that we grew up in, really oriented around men success stories, men heroes in movies, all of those kinds of things. So one of the things that ways that I kind of challenge myself or create opportunity for myself as much as possible is to keep reminding myself of, hey, there are, like when I get that image, like, hey, there are women who do this.
Right.
And there are people who identify as neither men nor women who do this too. And really, really open up space for this perception of a whole bunch of people, who are, not walking through the world as men,
Right.
and that opens up my perspective, and my, level of empathy, to a whole new level of people, and just makes me think about myself, my life, my perspective on stuff a little bit differently. And then I can kind of start dismantling assumptions and judgments I have about people that just, I didn't try to create those, but they were there from, how we grew up again, right? There's so much embedded stuff that we're, trying to let go of and unlearn. That's one of my big practices around that.
All right. That makes a lot of sense. So in other words, you've got these archetypes that you're programmed with, and A, becoming aware of them, and B, actively working to work out the bugs in the coding so you can have a clean operating system, as it were.
Exactly right. And the dark side of stories is, letting go of stories that you've just made up about people and stuff and situations.
Right.
I mean, natural, we do it, of course. We're trying to conceptualize our experience, and if we reify or create something that's way too solid, right, like that messes with our experience either directly with that situation or related kinds of situations, right? Because we have fixed and rigid thinking instead of agile, creative, innovative thinking.
Right. Yeah, and I think to that, I know I'm guilty of this, creating stories around how things were growing up and attaching meaning to that, probably influences behavior and thought patterns in a lot more ways than it should. And I think, circling back to that mindfulness practice, bringing that to the stories that you tell yourself and realizing where they may or may not serve you is an important piece about that mindfulness.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Really well said. And I'd love to piggyback on that too. Is that the kind of the awareness and the discovery of the mental psychological junk, if you want to call it that. There's so much power in simply having the awareness of it, like simply going, "Oh, I see that."
Right.
You don't have to spend time like trying to analyze it, or like why is that there? I mean, you could do that if it's appropriate, like with a professional therapist or something like that. But get so much traction from just being aware of it, like, hey, I see you, and I'm not buying into your story. That is a tremendously powerful way to be mindful about stuff, right? Like, don't get all caught up in what does it mean? What does it mean? It's just like, I see that. Okay, I'm gonna take a breath, right? Yeah, go. Again, this is mindfulness practice, not perfect, not a place for self-judgment, none of that. Like, we're not responsible for the thoughts that pop in. We're responsible for what we do with them, right? We're not responsible for our emotions. We're responsible for what we do with it.
Right.
It's across the board.
Yeah, and I think that the experience that I've kind of been coached through over the years, as far as that concerned, is that if there's like a behavior that you don't like, for example, getting angry or rushing to judgment, the first stage is awareness of it after the fact and being able to see, okay, that wasn't good, and then there's once you get good at that, it's awareness in the moment. So maybe you're still doing it, but you're conscious as it's happening, or right after, and then once you become more aware, it's like you can kind of predict how you'll be so you can then subserve it or stop it in advance. So that's kind of like the spectrum of part of that practice, which has helped me.
Yeah, good job explaining that. I want to invite everyone who's listening to listen to that part again. I mean, listen to this whole recording again, of course. And you really articulated it well, because that's the building of the muscle. Like, it takes time, it takes practice, and it shifts. Like, what kind of the benefit and the result and the experience shifts, and that's part of learning, understanding, experiencing, embodying it, and making it your own.
Yep. All right. Anything else that we want to cover that we haven't covered?
Gosh, I mean, I this is such a rich conversation. I think we got the big important stuff.
All right.
Yeah, just invite everybody to practice. This is worth it. This is the good fight, so to speak. Not trying to call it a fight, but whatever analogy you want to use, like, this is worth it for your happiness, worth it for your relationships, worth it for your business, worth it for your ability to navigate the apparent crazy around us in the world right now as well. So
Yep.
For all of those reasons, this is good stuff, good medicine.
Yes, it's simple yet complex, and it's cheap, and all you need to do is invest some time and some attention to it, and it'll definitely yield some great results.
Yes, indeed.
Cool. Do you have a free gift for our audience today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have at my website, influenceWithAheart.com. There's an opt-in right there, and when you opt in, there is a sample of my book, Influence with a Heart. And don't be misled by the word sample. There's a big chunk of stuff in there that's relevant. It's not the whole book, but you'll get a tremendous amount of value. Big focus on the things that I talk about: empathy, story, thought leadership, and that dash of mindfulness in there. The things that I talked about in terms of communication today, I go a lot deeper on all of that stuff in that book. So,
Awesome.
please visit the site and please enjoy.
Great, great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I'm really glad, that you brought me on, and super, super excited for all the other speakers that you're going to have on this series. That's, quite a group that you've pulled together. So kudos to you, and thanks for doing it.